Hello and welcome to Beyond Words Presents. I'm your host, Deb Snyder. We join you each week with a new Beyond Words author or filmmaker with content that is to keep you inspired and enriched with all the latest things that are coming out from our publishing house. Now today we have a very special guest. We are going to be joined by Elisa Medhus, author of My Son and the Afterlife. Elisa is a physician, mother of five, who has practiced internal medicine for over 30 years. She's the author of 3 award-winning parenting books and has lectured on parenting for schools, parent groups, and corporations. After the death of her 20-year-old son, Erik, Dr. Medhus began journaling her grief in the blog channelingerik.com. Dr. Medhus, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and I have to say, I just absolutely loved your book, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. And I know we have a lot of viewers out here who are very interested in hearing about you and about your journey with Erik. Start us off a little bit by telling us a little bit about what brought you to write a book.
Well, of course, Erik died, and that's, let's see, almost 4 years ago, and of course I was devastated. I woke up the next morning insisted that the Earth dared to continue to spin on its axis. I really did. A couple of things made it worse, though. First, I'm a physician, so of course all my training is in science. And for whatever reason, science teaches us that if you can't perceive it with your senses, it doesn't exist. And it didn't help to be raised by 2 atheists. So, that made it so difficult for me to answer the most important question of my life. Now, where's my boy? Where did Erik go? But then something amazing happened. You guys are going to like this story. I get a call from my father, an atheist, so this is beyond irony. And he sounded startled. This was just 3 days after Erik's death. He sounded startled. My father never startles. He's this thoracic surgeon, does trauma surgery, or did. And he said he was sitting in his chair, I don't know, reading the paper or something, and all of a sudden he looks up and there's Erik standing in front of him. And then he said Erik turned into his little boy self and crawled up into his lap. So my father's like, oh my God, I don't know what to believe. I'm so startled. That's when I started on the journey from skepticism to belief that it would eventually give birth to this book.
It's a captivating story because I want people to realize that as a medical doctor, as you said, you were an atheist and you were a skeptic of this whole situation. So life after death, believing in an afterlife at all was nothing that you ever really entertained. You thought you went to dust after. Is that correct? I remember reading that specific phrase in the book that you felt you turned to dust.
Actually, now, I wasn't an atheist. I just didn't have a belief system. There was one big fat vacuum. Even though we used to be Catholic, and my great uncle was Cardinal of Spain, so that's kind of funny. So yeah,
it's interesting how it comes around.
I know, but yes, I did have so many doubts when I finally started contemplating whether the soul survives death. And whether there's even a soul, and whether there's an afterlife after its death, that made me think about it.
Now, reading the book and reading the blog, actually I've been following your blog, which is wildly popular. Tens of thousands of people follow this blog. Every day. You're very generous to your followers by posting things all the time, so they're keeping up with you and keeping up with your adventures on Earth and with Erik's adventures in the afterlife. And I think it's intriguing how inspirational this has become for people. So this is becoming their lifeline to learning a lot about what's going on in spirit. So you must, even though this is such a tragic situation, I can't even imagine how tragic this must have been during all of this for you, but to know that there's this awakening and this enlightenment coming as a result of your experience with your son.
Well, I've been the most shocked of all. This has just exploded. The membership and the way it's affected blog members. Every day I hear from blog members how it's transformed their life, saved them, actually literally saved them in some cases. I remember one guy wrote the comment, I was going to kill myself today, but after reading this post, I'm not. Life is worth it. And another woman, she lost her son just like I did, and she had been going to therapy for a number of months, but for her, in her case, it just didn't seem to be working. So she came home from a therapy session, determined to kill herself. Got everything ready, was just about to do it, but then all of a sudden she had this strong urge to go to her computer and type in "my son is dead." Up comes channeling Erik, and she read it from beginning to end. She decided that she wants to live, and she's still with us now. So this also gives me a sense of responsibility. I won't say it's a burden, but it weighs heavily on my shoulders. And like I said, this has been overwhelming. I love doing it, but I'm just one of the followers. I'm not leading in anything, and sometimes I feel like I'm falling down this endless rabbit hole to how this is all unfolding.
Well, I could imagine it must be a lot of pressure. Now, tell us a little bit about how you actually do channel Erik. How does he come to you? Do you use the services of an energy translator? Is that correct?
Yes, I can do it as a beginner, not very well, but that's only for our personal conversations. And he does communicate to me in various ways, like goosebumps and so on. But yes, I've used Kim O'Neill. They're spirit translators, these two, and Jamie Butler. I don't like to call them mediums because all I think about is T-shirt sizes. But yeah, I've been through a lot of them. I first decided to try out a medium because I did all this research. I exhausted my explorations, and then I heard that a lot of parents who have lost somebody do seek out the service of a spirit translator. And I know many of them do this out of desperation. They want to see if their child's around. They want to hear that they're happy. And yeah, part of the reason for me was desperation, but most of it was I wanted validation. I did. Mm-hmm. So, and some of these spirit translators were just not very good. Some of them were great, like Kim O'Neill and Jamie Butler. Jamie Butler, for example, she pegged his personality to a T when I first started talking to her. She captured his horribly irreverent sense of humor, which is all through the book, by the way. He curses like a sailor, so that's in the book too. And his boyish charm, his mischievousness. Plus, she was able to validate a lot of things that there's no way anybody else but Erik and I would know, like where he was when he died, what clothes he was wearing, what gun he used, just everything. And so since then, we've been using her ever since.
Well, that makes total sense to be able to use someone that is in resonance with the person. I know a lot about energy communication simply because in my work we use it. I actually use it with my own daughter and family, and I work with energy communication with the living. I have actually trained in mediumship, and it's fascinating the different styles and ways it can come across. So I think it's important for our viewers to realize that you found who was right for you and Erik, and that another person who might not have worked out will be totally perfect for another family or someone else who needs that message. So we all have different skills and styles and way of doing things, but I love how Jamie she and Erik, like you refer to them as being like brother and sister, because teasing each other, because they're just really in step. I know when reading on the blog and in the book some of the dialogue, it's hard to tell where one stops and the other one ends because they're such on a good vibe, on a good wavelength with one another.
That's true. He's the pestery little brother, and she's the annoying sister. They get under each other's skin a lot. Now, at first, Jamie had a lot of trouble translating his curse words. She just hesitated. She'd wince. She'd blush because she's like this innocent, childlike person. But anyway, eventually he became a bad influence on her. Now she doesn't have as much trouble. and they
Well,
get along
I
so well.
I appreciate her authenticity with it because actually mediumship training in England, for example, I spent a week in England this year at the Arthur Findlay Spiritual School. You do not swear because you're in church, and that is their paradigm and their belief. So it's not something that is done. But I think she does a great job of saying sailor talk or saucy talk, so she doesn't have to drop the f bombs on people in an interview or anything. But
Exactly,
it's in
exactly.
but it's important, as you said, it's Erik because of that style. It's a nuance that was part of his personality, which is important, and it made you believe more than ever. And I think that would be the case with many people. Now, what do you still? You said that you and Erik, in your own private relationship, have your own forms of communication. What would be an example of some of that? I heard he's a little bit of a tease when it comes to electrical stuff.
Yes, we had radio interviews today, and he messed with all of them. He shut the phones down. He would put the calls on mute intermittently. So he loves electronics. He will invert the SIM cards in people's cell phones. It's just crazy. Now, for me, I've seen him turn on blenders. These are just pranks. I'll get to the communication in a minute. He'll turn on like blenders and other appliances that are unplugged, and call us on the phone. That was interesting. But for me, he usually works with goosebumps. He moves his energy into my energy, and it creates this, gosh, it's almost like goosebumps that are overly intense, almost painful, but it's not. And they're very regional. It might be on an arm, a leg, or the scalp. That's a popular one. And you don't get that. Physiologically, you don't get very small regions that have goosebumps.
I enjoyed that aspect of your book where you're testing yourself and you're testing him to make sure you're not making this up in your own heart, just to comfort yourself. You're always the scientist, so good for you, Dr. Medhus, trying to keep yourself real and honest in this. And I love how that encourages people that are out there right now to do the same. Request what sign they want to hear from someone, whether it's a kiss on the cheek or a certain song on the radio, to realize that you can open yourself up for little hints and little love notes from spirit. So I think that's really, I love how you encourage average people to, by all means, seek out a translator if they want, yet also dive right in themselves to communicate with their loved ones.
Well, there's an easy way that you can test out their ability to communicate. It's called the hand game. Now you put your hands on your thighs, palms up, and you designate one hand is yes and the other one is no. And then you ask a question, like, are you happy? And you wait. You wait until you get a sensation of any sort, any change in sensation. Sometimes it'll feel like they're blowing into your palm. Sometimes it's tingly or numb or hot or cold. If you don't get anything right away, then say, make it stronger. And wait a while and make it stronger. It's really amazing. But, of course, that only works for yes and no questions.
Well, but it's certainly a start, for people who want to do that. How were you able to get over that initial immense grief to just step into the next day and start pursuing this?
Gosh, it took me a long time. I was so broken. I still am broken, but it helped me to communicate with him, obviously. Yeah, it's very difficult. But also, what helped me is being able to pour my grief into the blog. That's the main reason I started it. I don't know why, but I heal best when I help others. And I wanted to create a community, a safe, loving community where others could do the same, share their pain, but feel protected and supported by the other members. But then things changed. And then I started posting some of the pranks that my family members and friends were receiving, some of the other signs of communication. And eventually I started posting all the ones that blog members got. And they were many. There were many of them.
Well, it sounds like Erik was pretty pretty busy traveling the globe, reaching out to people. I read some of the letters that were included in the book, and it's pretty interesting how he was able to get himself around there and not just be a trickster, but a poignant trickster, where he actually helped people with questions in their life. I especially found it interesting about the gentleman that lived overseas but had a girlfriend in Canada, and Erik was able to give him encouragement and proper direction during his visit. And to me, I think that's all people need sometimes, is a little bit of encouragement. Now, we actually had a viewer submit a question. Lisa from Chico wants to know, how has this shift changed your practice of medicine? You were a fully trained physician, practiced, your whole professional life. How has this situation shifted that?
Well, I will tell you how it would have shifted, what I would have done if I was in practice. After Erik died, I took some time off, a couple of weeks, and I came back, and the first thing that I had to treat was a head injury. So I quit. And I feel like I'm saving more, we are saving more people this way than I ever could as a doctor. But if I were to practice now, it's not about being compassionate. I was always really compassionate and nurturing with my patients. It would be about encouraging them to talk about spiritual things, to share the deathbed visions they were witnessing in a dying relative, for example, to encourage that. I think it's very important.
I think it is as well, and I think it's interesting that there seems to be more physicians coming forward with their own experiences of energy and of the afterlife, near-death experiences, and it makes me wonder if there's some sort of cosmic shift going on that's going to help elevate the belief system in the whole world, because it's one thing to have someone like me, who's known to be a bit of a woo-woo chick, to believe in this, and I've been involved in energy my whole life, but to have someone who specifically trained a different way, trained to not believe in the intangible. So I think it's powerful that your work can make the intangible tangible. So we're glad to have you on board at this point.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to remind viewers that you're watching Beyond Words Presents, and our guest today is Dr. Elisa Medhus, and we're talking about her book, My Son and the Afterlife. As we get toward the end of the hour, we're going to discuss a very special offer that Elisa has for everyone, not only for her book, but for some of her other offerings. We have different files that will be available only to you, digital files that you can download with more in-depth personal information about her work with Erik and the things that he does, and also an invitation to join Dr. Medhus and her energy translator, Jamie Butler, for a private consultation. So we'll talk about that a little more toward the end of the hour. Now, Dr. Medhus, how have we alluded a little bit to you wish you would help people be a little more spiritual in your practice. How have your personal spiritual beliefs changed after this?
Well, after I started asking questions of Jamie, Erik through Jamie, and gathering all this information about death, the afterlife, spirits, and those bigger concepts that are in the book, I went from 0 to 90% sure, and I hung out there for, well, actually just until 6 or 7 months ago. I just couldn't get past that 90% mark, and I think I know why. Because what if I did? What if I did fully believe 100%, and then I found out it was some cruel joke? That would be like losing Erik twice, and this time forever, and I couldn't do it. I dug in my heels until one experience that happened, like I say, 6 to 7 months ago. I think my blog members would be horrified to find out how recent that was, but well, they probably know now, don't they? Shout out to you guys.
Now, you talk about your communications with Erik, and they are ongoing, the ones that you use with your energy translators. Tell us about your first conversation with Erik and how that went and how that shifted you.
Well, of course, the first questions were very personal, and that's all in the book. They're very raw, very real, and I was very vulnerable. Questions like why, the big why. Well, did it hurt? What were your last thoughts before you pulled the trigger? Did we do anything wrong? Could we have done anything to save you? So those were the first questions, and the answers I received just rung so true that it opened my mind a little bit wider. Now, my father's experience opened my mind just a tiny crack, enough to let a little sliver of light in. But over time, each of these experiences and everything that Erik says, little by little, got me to that 90%. Now, do you want to hear the story that got me to 100%?
Oh, I'd love to.
It's very interesting. Like I said, 6 or 7 months ago, a blog member contacted me, and she said she heard 3 voices on one of the recorded sessions that Jamie and I did like a year and a half earlier. And my first thought was, no, I was there. I didn't hear anything or see anybody. But of course I listened. And sure enough, 3 voices. And one of them was Erik, without a doubt. And mothers, you guys know, we know the sound of our own kid's voice. He had this way of saying breakfast like a little child, breakfast. And he also had this verbal tick that he did all the time, all the time. It sounded like he was clearing his throat, but he wasn't. So I was intrigued enough to take it to a sound professional. They analyzed it, and they said, yeah, this is weird. There are little distortions, especially in Erik's voice, that are not human-like. And one of the voices sounded like they were whispering directly into the mic, but there's nobody there on the video. But I think the most interesting thing is these voices left no voice print, no voice signature, which is just impossible with humans.
That is fascinating. So you could hear it, but it couldn't be perceived on any sort of chart or anything.
That's
wow.
right.
And more than you heard it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have that on my iPhone. I listen to it all the time. It's just wonderful to hear his voice.
Well, tell me, do you feel is this something anyone in spirit can do, or is Erik part of a special group that's allowed to have this level of communication with us on Earth? Tell me a little bit what you think about that.
No, he's no mountaintop guru. Actually, he was afraid of heights, truth to be known. But he's really just a kid without a body, and any spirit can do exactly what he's doing because they can all tap into this vast, infinite sea of information and share it. Now, some are better than others at it. Erik happens to be very good at it. But for some, it's just not their gig. One spirit may want to help babies cross over. Another might want to work with struggling teens over here. Some might want to, help those who have crossed over from traumatic or violent death. So some of them don't want to do anything. They just want to rest, and that's me. I got a lazy boy up there with my name on it, and I'm going to kick back for a long time.
So you're already making reservation with a lazy boy for when it's your time. So, well,
right.
From what Erik says, that's going to be a long way from now.
Yeah.
That's so right. Now tell me, this is something that I'm trying to wrap my heart and brain around. Erik does seem to be able to answer some very deep questions, deep philosophical questions, give us some answers to things that we're curious about, yet he also still chooses to stay in the lower vibration of curse words and even slang and even derogatory words at times. If you read the blog, there are some things that are very human to it. How do you reconcile that?
Well, he says that words are just a string of letters, that they get their power from the emotional intent behind them. And his intent is benevolent. Actually, the blog members love it because, they find it endearing. He's more approachable. It's like he's one of us. Now, why does he curse? Here's what he says. He says that he curses because he wants everybody to know it's him, that he's not some ascended master who starts out with, welcome, my dear one. Oh, God, that is not his style. He is raw and unplugged. Plus, and I think this is very important, too, he doesn't want to just preach to the choir and reach those who are already knowledgeable about spiritual matters. Nah, he wants to reach out to the hard hat and the college student and the single mother, the businesswoman. I think he's doing that. I think he is crossing boundaries and certainly will continue to.
Well, you'll have to tell Erik the next time you have a conversation that my daughter has always preferred curse words herself. She cannot speak, but for some reason she gets a real kick out of it if someone else says a curse word, and the nastier the better. She just really laughs, and we have a good friend, a medical doctor, who tested her once by saying rhyming words. I'm going to say none of them right now, but he would test her to see if she would react differently to one that sounded like it versus the actual curse word. And she didn't react to any of the rhymes, but he would curse, so she would feel that little saucy energy of it and just giggle and giggle and giggle. So I think there's something to it. So whether, Erik, like you said, the intent behind it and using the energy for good as opposed to be, mean, to someone else, that's certainly never been his style. Now, how has your communication with Erik impacted other relationships in your life? You're the mother of 5. How does it affect your other children and your grandchildren?
Oh, they are full-on believers, and they believed earlier than I did. They love it. I think it's given them so much comfort, because when Erik died, gosh, it was just like an atom bomb blew up in our family. Everybody changed. Everybody had their unique reaction to it. But over time, our wounds healed, and my children are just all into spirituality now, all into it. And like I said, they get so much comfort from it. So I guess in a way, Erik's death, as tragic as it is, has really made some positive changes in our entire family.
Well, I think that's encouraging to now the young children that are coming up now that might not have been able to know Erik when he was alive. How are they told about Erik? Because obviously Erik has a big place in your life, in your professional life now, and helping others. How are they taught about Erik?
Well, my granddaughter, she has seen him before, and he chases her, and she squeals, and so on. And we talk about Erik all the time, and we talk about him being in heaven. Kids are more open. They have not been indoctrinated by our beliefs, and I think that's why they see spirits, because nobody has yet told them, oh, you don't have any imaginary friends. Oh, you just got an overactive imagination. So talking to them, it's very important to validate everything they say.
Now, I think in reading what Erik had to say about his own suicide, he strongly encourages others not to take their own lives. Even though he has experienced peace and he's doing all he can to help us now from the other side, he really wants people to move forward with their work. Is that correct?
Yes, he talks about how the human experience is just vital. They love to come down to earth and struggle here, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. But here's what he says to those who are even contemplating suicide. When you die, all you do is lose your body like a suit of clothes. You still have the problems, and you take them with you. In fact, you create more problems for yourself because you're excruciatingly aware of all the grief you've left behind. You see every tear, you hear every moan, you feel every heartbreak, and you also see how many missed opportunities you've created for others. For example, let's say you were supposed to father a child that was going to grow up to discover a vaccine for all forms of cancers. Now that's not going to happen because of what you've done, and you'll know that. Now, why are we here? Why are we here to struggle? That's important. We're here because we can achieve things that they can't do there. They can conceptualize things like love, but they don't have that experiential component. For example, let's say you want to know about hot. Well, you can conceptualize what hot is, you can read the descriptions, etc., but you don't really know it until you experience cold. So what we do is we come here to create that contrast. It's almost like we're in a school play, and so we agree to have roles with and against each other in order to create these learning experiences. Let's say one spirit might say, you know what, I want to learn about forgiveness. How about this life you betray me? Those are struggles. So these are all lessons that push us forward. I like Erik's brownie analogy. He, of course, it always makes me hungry for a brownie. But he says that you can look at a picture of a brownie, you can read the recipe, but now you have to come down to the kitchen. You have to mix the ingredients. You have to get batter all over yourself. In my case, probably my hair. You have to put the brownies in the oven, perhaps burn your fingers, but you take them out, cool them off, frost them. You got to have frosting. And you take a bite, and then you really, really know what a brownie is.
That's a wonderful way of being able to look at all aspects of life and appreciate what we have right now. To know that whether it is making brownies or falling in love or getting a career, or to do it full-hearted and be present in it. So I think that's a wonderful lesson. Of all the things that he talks about, what do you think is a really crucial lesson that you find validating, that is most important for people to learn about?
Well, he talks about emotional honesty. He says we're emotional beings, whether we're in spirit or in a body, and you have to be emotionally honest with yourself and emotionally honest with others, and you have to be okay with being vulnerable. A lot of people think vulnerability is a weakness, but no, it's a strength. You have to open your heart. So I think that's the two things that he really feels strongly about and is trying to share with us. It's hard to be emotionally honest, whether it's with yourself or whether it's with others. It really takes courage.
But many times we don't feel like we're polite if we're honest with someone about some of our deeper things, especially because I think humans by nature can be a little fickle. Mm-hmm. And where we feel one moment might not be where we feel 10 minutes later. So to really know our hearts and know what we want and be able to tap in. So I think he's incredibly encouraging to be able to appreciate life. It makes sense how it's played out for him, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
People say that about my own daughter, born with a profound disability. Mm-hmm. Some people look at her life as sort of a wasted life, she doesn't have much to it. But she is affected so much. She has affected us in so many positive ways, and all the people that come into her world and the people that have, read my works, and she in her way, her vulnerability is teaching us all. So I love that our children can be our ultimate teachers.
And she probably came down she probably came down, well, not down, it's not up, it's this dimension is right on top of ours. She probably had a spiritual contract to help you and your family with that.
I believe that too, and I think that we all have those contracts and relationships. Now, I'm going to jump on what you just said there. You said it's not down, it's on top of ours. Tell us a little bit more about what Erik has shared with you about the afterlife. I think people are interested in knowing some of those little nitty-gritty details.
Well, you can have anything and create anything you want. Your afterlife is based on the beliefs you created about it here, and you can change those beliefs. You can change your afterlife to be anything you want. When Erik first passed away, his whole environment was very similar to the earthly plane. He had his own little bachelor pad and TV and all that, and you can create that. I know it sounds kind of weird, but you can create anything you want because thought creates reality. But then after he became comfortable where he is now, things changed. You can create a beach and go surfing with your friend over there. You can create like a mountain to ski on. At the same time, you're skiing and the other dude's surfing on the beach. So you can really just create anything you want. Now, as far as spirits are concerned, that's also very interesting. We ask if they have their senses still, which they do, but it's a little different. If they feel emotions, yes, they do. Can they be destroyed, or are they born? No to both. So there's a lot here. A lot here in this book. It's like a compendium of information about death, the afterlife, and spirits, among other things, of course.
I think, sorry, I had a little bit of a distortion there, so I didn't get to hear the very end of what you were saying. I know that reading some of the description Erik talks about, you share in your book through Erik's words, through Jamie. It gets, like you said, you're kind of get in the middle there. It gets translated through a lot of people. It is encouraging, and it does feel more relatable human than I might have thought it would be. I didn't know there would be some of the, reading about Erik's bad day, for example, that he can have bad days, that he can have regrets, and process those emotions and everything. That was interesting for me, because I think we all do think that it's all just going to be elevated and positive, although we can appreciate the challenges we had, we think we might be devoid of challenges once we're in the afterlife.
That's right. You don't have the struggle there. You can't hold on to negative emotions. He said it's like grabbing onto some greased monkey bars. There's no space for it.
I love how he makes things very simple, though, to understand. You know, how he's, talks about the brownies and talks about the monkey bars, because that's what we're going to get, because anyone who's ever tried to, grab something slick like that gets it right there. Now,
Yeah.
why can't the average person see or hear spirits?
That's a really good question. Everything is energy, including us. Erik says we're sentient energy that's self-aware, so we're thinking energy. Everything is energy. Your microphone, your bookcase, everything is energy. In fact, Einstein called matter frozen light. So this means you vibrate at a certain frequency, and so do spirits. Now, there's this long electromagnetic spectrum. I don't know if everybody's heard of that, but all energy vibrates at certain points, very unique points on the spectrum. X-rays, infrared rays, ultraviolet waves, radio waves. You know what? We can't see radio waves, but they exist. Why don't we believe in spirits, But anyway, we are in that tiny part called the visible range. That's where we see things. That's where we see matter and such. And spirits vibrate above that. That's why you can't. Think about a hummingbird. Erik uses so many analogies. It's great. Think about a hummingbird. You see one sitting on a branch. You see the wings in pretty good detail. But once it's in flight, those little wings are beating at such a high frequency that they're all but invisible.
No, it's definitely true. Now, do you feel in your evolution over these past number of years, now the anniversary of Erik's passing just happened this past week, that's correct? It's been 4 years?
Yeah. And the 12th will be his burial. That's hard.
I'm sure. I'm sure it is hard. I'm sure it's very hard.
Yeah.
Do you feel in these number of years that you have raised your ability to sense that vibration? Erik talks about how we need to raise our vibration and they need to lower theirs, so we kind of meet in the middle. Do you feel you're able to get your antenna up a little bit higher?
Absolutely. He said that the reason people who grieve, and this is why I didn't get any forms of communication. I was the last one to get any forms of communication from Erik. But when you grieve, on that electromagnetic scale, where we're on that visible range, our frequency is not very high. That's why we say, I'm depressed, I feel low, I feel down. And what you have to do, so they don't have to work so hard to lower their frequency to match ours, we have to meet them in the middle. So it helps when you're grieving to just sort of change your perspective and think of joyful memories and just say, hey, how you doing, to your son or daughter or deceased loved one. It really helps. And I had to do that in order to communicate better and sense his energy.
I like that aspect in the book when you were communicating with Erik about the goosebumps, and you found that it was a little elusive, but when you stopped and centered yourself and said the positive affirmations and sent him love just like you would any of your children, it worked better. And so I think that's a good technique for people. And for those viewers out there, you should try what Dr. Medhus suggested with her open hand technique, and make sure to do that extra charge of the positive thoughts around it. A lot of people I know that I'm involved in, that do this type of work or that follow mediums, they feel automatically that they can't do it. So they're setting themselves to a very, low, high bar they could never reach. So they're automatically starting off disadvantaged because they're being down on themselves. So I think that it's encouraging for you to say, just keep in the positive energy, keep in the love. That's the best way to raise the vibration. Now, tell me, what do you want your book to do, Elisa? What do you want? Why did you write the book beyond your own personal healing? Who do you want this to reach?
Well, several things. I want people to know that when somebody dies, somebody they love dies, the relationship does not have to be over. They've just lost their body. That's it. They want the relationship to continue. And there's no reason why it shouldn't. It's not like they're squirreled away to some gated community with this little winged security guard on watch. So you can. Another reason is because I wanted people to know what happens after death. And I think those are the two most important, two most important things. And I guess the most important is the relationship never stops. Oh, also I want people we want to demystify death. That it's not a scary thing. Actually, it's probably easier than being born and being here with our struggles. We should be more frightened about living than we should about dying.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense when you look at it backward. But don't you have to? You have to kind of look at it the way Erik looks at it as he's reflecting. He gets it, and we're fortunate that he's able to share that wisdom with us, so maybe we can get it while we're still here, in the denseness, in the struggles, and maybe the struggles can be a little bit less. I find it all very encouraging, and having a child that has not expected to have a long life expectancy, it's comforting to me to know that can continue. I communicate with my daughter now through energy, and to know that will continue on because Erik tells me it will, and that's encouraging to me. So please thank you, and let him know as well that I'm encouraged by that. It warms a mother's heart for sure. Now, I want to know a little bit about your blog. Can you share some experiences that you've had with some of the people that follow you on your blog? Tell us a little bit about some of the Erik stories with some of your bloggers.
Gosh, it's really weird. Once somebody starts participating in the blog, reading, commenting, all bets are off. They're probably going to be pranked or receive some sort of communication. Let's see. Gosh, there's so many. Well, there's this one lady who she goes out on her morning jog. She comes back. All her kitchen drawers are wide open. Now, there's nobody in the house. She doesn't live with anybody. She doesn't have anything there but an opposable thumb. And there's this one gentleman. When he passes a police station, his whole car fills with the smell of pot. Which is unnerving. You don't want that to happen when you're passing a police station. So, gosh, there are just hundreds. And actually, if you look on the blog, we have a tab on the top where you can share all your Erik encounters, I call them.
Nice. Well, Elisa was telling us at the top of the hour that Erik has been wreaking a little havoc with some of her interviews, and we made sure to ask very nicely before we started this today, Erik, please don't please don't mess with us a little bit. I will let you know that I have gotten a little distortion here or there, and as soon as it starts, I'll be like, okay, Erik, no, don't do that, and I get back to you again. So that's good. So we can say that he is being polite, but I might have heard from him a little bit during this, so it's nice to know that he makes an appearance for every time. Now, Elisa, I want to shift gears a little bit right now and talk a little bit about the offering that you have for people. So I'm going to go ahead and do that a little bit. Now, this is available for our viewers of this Google Hangout only. Dr. Medhus has been kind enough to put together an offering bundle for people, and it's pretty captivating because it is more than just the book. In addition to her book, My Son in the Afterlife, you also receive her PDF downloads of some of the things, the real deep things that didn't get into the book. Not everything could go into a book, or every book would be 1,000 pages. So these are some of her personal experiences with Erik from the beginning, that they're in two separate. We have Elisa's story in a PDF download, and also one on Erik's visits, dreams, messages, and his different pranks. So I know people who would appreciate that prank digital file just in and of itself. So now, in addition to those and the book, there's also what's being offered, a session with Jamie and Erik. It's a digital meetup, not unlike what we're doing now, but it's for a much larger group of people that are available. It would be a private session, so only people that are available in this certain group. So this would be, I'm going to let people go to the website to read the dates and the details, but there are two separate days that are offered. But basically, during the event, Jamie is going to be channeling Erik for a full 90 minutes. and he'll be speaking directly through her, and they'll be talking about 45 minutes, and then for the remainder of the time, they're going to be able to address specific questions. So this is a very unique opportunity. As Elisa had said throughout this, Jamie Butler is a very talented energy translator, and not everyone gets the opportunity to do this. So it's very kind of Elisa to bring this offer for us today. So all of this bundle, all of this offering is available to our viewers, Beyond Words Presents viewers, for only $99.95, and this is hundreds of dollars off what any kind of session like that would be. So go to our website, which is www.beyondword.com/Medhus, Medhus, and you'll be able to see all the details of the offer there. It's all spelled out for you what that includes. But again, Elisa, that was very kind of you to have this type of offer for our viewers today.
Sure. Now we'll say, beware, because just by participating in this Google Hangout, it's very likely that he's going to prank you. But it's never really creepy. I've told him to please, when people are sleeping and they open their eyes, that he doesn't go boo like 2 inches from their face. But no, everybody loves his pranks and visits. Actually, when one of the blog members gets one, all the rest are really jealous. So it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's funny. So they attach to it that way. Erik is becoming sort of a celebrity in our life for representing the afterlife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, well, how did he like that?
He loves it. He doesn't like being put on a pedestal, but this is his life's work. He loves the blog members. He absolutely loves them. He's got a crush on a couple of the girls, so he says. And everybody's wondering if it's them.
That's no. Now tell me, does Erik seem to be staying at his age, or is he aging at all in spirit?
No, he wants to stay his own age, 20. Now, other spirits can be any age they want. I mean, again, it's the whole thought creates reality. You can be a baby if you want. You can age along with the family that you left. So by the time they cross, you're the age that you would have been.
That makes a lot of sense, I think, but it's nice that 20 is not a bad age to have stuck with, I don't think. So oftentimes, you can have a lot of fun, and I'm glad that he's having, an enjoyment with it and being able to interact with people to the level that he is now. Now, tell me, Elisa, you spend a lot of time in traditional medicine. What do you think your colleagues, the people you went to medical school with, what do they feel about this?
Well, it's hard to talk to them about it because you never know what reaction they're going to get. And because I'm a little vulnerable and broken, I'm just afraid that there's going to be criticism. So I don't bring it up much. But like I said, there are a lot of physicians in the closet who want to share their experiences, their spiritual experiences, but they're afraid of being ostracized by their peers.
Have you had people step forward in support? Because at this point, you're out of the closet, the spiritual closet now. I mean, you have a book that's doing amazingly. You've been on national television a number of times the past few weeks, telling your story, telling Erik's story. We're glad to have you here with us now. But you can't hide it anymore. This is who you are. This is who you've become. So they're going to know.
The secret's out.
That's
no
right.
Going back. But yeah, this is bigger than me and my little ego. It's bigger. This is for humanity. Erik and I want to help the larger population. So even though I get a little embarrassed and a little unsure that it may evoke some sort of negative reaction, I just tell myself it's bigger than me, much bigger than me.
I think that's a nice way of looking at it, because you were saying at times you feel burdened by it, and that makes sense, because when something like this does take on a life of its own, you've birthed something else in addition to your other children. This is a whole other entity altogether. So it does have a lot of responsibility, but I think that this is something you're co-creating, not just with Erik, not just with Jamie, but also all of your blog followers. Everyone's joining their energies together to kind of help elevate it. So, so what do you think is next for channeling Erik? What do you think? What's on the deck for all this? How do you see this evolving?
Well, now we're covering a lot more about the human experience itself instead of just what death and the afterlife and spirits and so on. So we'll delve into things like, why do some people struggle? Why do some people make money and others don't? Why do some people feel alone? So there's a lot we can cover, and I think my next book is going to cover that, the human experience and everything involved, even the spiritual basis for, gosh, hundreds of diseases, and how you can approach it spiritually to resolve them.
Oh, that's an interesting way of doing it. Now, you're working with only Jamie now as an energy translator. Have you thought of bringing in someone you've never met before to see if they can also channel Erik?
No, he loves Jamie too much. He feels like he can keep her filters down too, and keep her every time she brings her own opinions into it or somehow taints what she's about to say. He says, "Don't weed me, Jamie. Don't weed me." So, but they love each other. He just adores Jamie.
Well, that's good, and it makes it, it makes it very, very clear for you, especially like we said, we talked about they're in resonance together. So how do you think, what is your opinion of how science would explain their level of communication?
Well, science is discovering things about survival consciousness and such. Erik talks about, let me give you a couple of examples of how science is meshing into all this spirituality. Erik says that the soul is made of neutrinos, and those are little bitty particles that can pass through lead. I think that's how they were discovered. And he said that when we die, those neutrinos turn into a waveform, and those waves are carriers of information. Now, science discovered that too. And he also talks about how the soul is anchored to the body. It's through, in the hollow space of these little structures that we have in all cells called microtubules. Now, microtubules, they're important to help maintain the structure of the cell, but they're also, they have some function in cell division. But what happens is, now remember, everything is energy. The soul is anchored to the energy of the soul is anchored to the energy of the body in that hollow space. And when you die, that energy builds up and builds up and builds up and spark. There's a disconnection. Now sometimes this disconnection process goes awry. It's like, Houston, we have a problem, and it won't disconnect very easily. So the energy continues to build up and build up and build up, and poof, spontaneous combustion. That's how Erik explains it. And it's very interesting because he says that people who die from spontaneous combustion very often have a hard time letting go of things in general, like hoarders. That would be an example. So you guys call Pack Rat. Get rid of all your stuff, quick. You don't want to go out in flames.
That's a good way to look at it. It's nice how Erik can make something so serious, so light, but explaining how it actually, can affect us directly. So, and aren't we finding, you could speak on this, Doctor, more clearly, that when people keep things in, I think I read that it's called like a type C personality, that they could actually have more prevalence of cancer and things. It's another way of looking at the extension of that trapping disease in our body can cause disease.
That's right. He says that diseases in general are supposed to be ways to communicate to us that something's wrong and what is it. So everything from pain to, like he says, that poor sight. That's often the case in people that take their life for granted. So they don't see how marvelous things are and how valuable the human experience is. So examples like that are covered when we talk about the spiritual basis of disease in this upcoming book. I'm going to rest for a while, though. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I think you deserve the rest. I think you're doing a fabulous job in this, and you should be proud of yourself for being open. As I said, someone like me, I've been open a long time. I've been a psychic medium my whole life, and it's just a natural part. I didn't have to overcome a medical degree in that regard, and I think that is one of the things that that was a barrier for you, and so it's encouraging to know that people like yourself and people like Jamie Butler are able to form a partnership because of your bond with Erik that enables the entire world to be elevated by this and to learn a lot from it. Now, does Erik have access to information that he's not allowed to share with us?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things he said, you guys are not ready to know this. There are some things that humans have not evolved spiritually to know. I don't know why. Maybe we'll just blow up. My head is almost about to explode at a lot of the mind-bending concepts he talks about already. But yeah, there's a number of things that he will not share.
Well, I could understand that because it's the similar concept that how destiny and free will coexist. So certain things are to happen because of our contracts, our life contracts, and maybe they wouldn't if we were given information we're really not supposed to have. And that's going to be, I give Erik a lot of credit, and I'll have to put the royalty check in the mail to him because a lot of people who do readings and interpretations for people, we explain that not everything is meant to be known. And many people don't want to hear that because they think it should all be known. But in the course of a life, you know, timing can make a big difference when something is revealed. So I think this is just absolutely wonderful, Elisa, and I'm so glad that you've been able to share your journey with Erik. It's been, you know, wonderful to have you here and to have Erik here in my ear, which is why I keep going like this, making these little distortions. I want to remind our viewers that Dr. Elisa Medhus has brought with her a special offering for just the viewers today of this Google Hangout. So only Beyond Words Presents viewers on the Google Hangout have access to this. Her offering is a copy of her book, My Son in the Afterlife, and also 2 special downloads that are the more intimate, the more detailed information than you would get in just the book alone. So you're getting the story behind the story and some of the insights about Erik. And so for people who are especially interested in what goes on in the afterlife and what has happened in Elisa's life, this is the additional information that is given to you. And the final component of that offer is the special session with Jamie Butler channeling Erik. So do go to beyondword.com/Medhus. Let me spell that for you. That's MEDHUS, and you'll be able to access the offer and take a look at everything. Now, we're hopefully, and you know, Dr. Medhus is a member of the Beyond Words family. This is not her only book with Beyond Words. Her other books have been with Beyond Words as well, and we'll keep an eye out for all of your future titles as well. So we appreciate her being with us, and I thank you again, Dr. Medhus, for sharing your very personal and private story with us today.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you.
Did you have any final words that you wanted to share with anyone today?
Just don't forget, we're eternal beings. Everything's going to be fine.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Medhus. I appreciate that, and I hope that you'll be back with us again. We look forward to having you back on for future Google Hangouts, and I encourage our viewers to make sure that they stay in contact with us. We have a lot of really great shows that are coming up for you. As a matter of fact, next week we're on live every Wednesday, and then everything goes. You can actually watch us afterwards via our own website or on YouTube. But next week we're going to be featuring Catherine Tristan. I'm grabbing for the book right here, Why Worry? So Catherine will be with us for a full hour next week, so we hope you'll join us again. My name is Deb Snyder, and this has been Beyond Words Presents. Thank you.